Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk News. I am Luke Owen and this is Wrestling News. Our top story today surrounds Monday's episode of Raw, or more specifically, after the show went off the air. The main event of the show saw Team Championship of Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn take on the Judgment Day, where the good guys failed to pick up the win after Finn Balor and Damian Priest became friends again. While not a blowaway six-man tag, it still had good action, though fans did notice that Balor and Rollins struggled to get on the same page in a couple of moments, with a botched sling blade attempt by Balor being the most obvious. And according to PW Insider, this spilled over into the backstage area after the match. Mike Johnson reports that there was an argument backstage following the match between the six wrestlers. The problem stemmed from several spots in the match not going as planned, with one quoted as saying that the match was clunky. Johnson claims that two people he spoke with say that there were frustrations over the match as elements of it were changed at the last literal second. In fact, one of those sources put the blame squarely at the feet of one individual but wouldn't name them so as to not make the internet go insane. But that's what we do. How can we possibly thrive if you won't let us go insane? Unnamed source, if anything, not telling us it's going to make us go a different kind of insane. You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Johnson adds that the argument was never in danger of getting physical, adding that the situation finally petered out, but we are told that many involved weren't happy with the situation. Insert outdated Jersey Shore reference from the mid-2000s here. Johnson concludes his report saying it was seen as one of those nights where things just didn't click, and since there were so many people involved who care about their jobs and performances, emotions ran high because of those frustrations. Many fans online jumped to the perhaps obvious comparison to AEW's Brawlout that occurred after the conclusion of All Out last year, but Johnson's report suggests that the two events are nothing alike. Sean Rossap of Fightful posted on Twitter shortly after PW Insider story, "Those we spoke to regarding last night's WWE Raw main event say it was more of a talk and a difference of opinion than an argument." He added to this in a Fightful Select report that those he spoke with were actually playing down the incident, even noting that Kevin Owens had left the building almost immediately as the match was over because he had a prior engagement to attend. He notes that Seth Rollins got cracked pretty hard during the match, but it was nothing out of the ordinary. As SRS puts it, boys will be boys. One notable thing missing from Sean's update on the story is the claim from PW Insider that there were some literal last-minute changes that made the match feel out of place. There have not been any reports of any major changes to Raw like we've seen in the recent weeks since the era of Vince McMahon's remote meddling, and there haven't been reports he was at the show either. We'll have more wrestling news in just a moment, but first, we're going to head on over to Turbo Jake for more information about today's sponsor.
I'm 80s wrestler Turbo Jake, and if there's one thing I know, it's security. Because security is always trying to protect that Damian Lenoir, because he pays him off. But I always drop the old turbo elbow on him and take him down. But when it comes to internet security, because that's a thing we also have here in the 80s, there's only one company you need to maintain your internet experience, and that's Gaudio. Gaudio is a browser extension that protects you from online threats that most standard solutions just can't help you with. Gaudio works seamlessly in the background, detecting blocks and blocking threats before they can reach your browser and cause harm, unlike other traditional solutions that only remove the threat after it's already there. That is too late. Gaudio keeps you safe from phishing attempts, malware, information leaks, and malicious websites. And they just released a new feature that alerts you once a malicious email bypassed your spam folder. Turbo Jake knows what all of those words mean, and one Gaudio account covers 5 family members. Even if you think you're covered with things like 2-factor authentication, if a stealer gets on your machine, they'll bypass it all, which can come from malware in places like Google Ads, Facebook, and even YouTube. That's where you are right now. So visit god.io/WrestleTalk or click the link in the description below to join Gaudio's over 1 million users and get 20% off your monthly subscription. Get Gaudio today and protect your online browsing and information, and check out their affordable premium plan for full protection. That's god.io/WrestleTalk, god.io/WrestleTalk. Turbo Elbow.
Thank you for that, Turbo Jake. That was an excellent read, but you are not as sexy as Turbo Jack. Classy as Turbo Jack. You are not as classy as Turbo Jack. Classy. Raw may or may not have had a disagreement between its talents, but it sure had a good night in the ratings. After facing stiff competition from American Pride last week as the show aired the day before July 4th, Raw bounced back this week like Alan Partridge with 1.81 million viewers. Now, That overall number is down from last week, but the 18 to 49 was a 0.56, which is up 15%. And what those boring numbers mean to cool people like you and I is that while the overall number isn't as high as last week, more young people were watching this episode of Raw, and that's a good thing. The peak of that 18 to 49 came perhaps predictably during the Logan Paul segment. It was also good news for AEW as the fourth episode of Collision saw a rise in the ratings as the show drew 580,000 viewers, which is up nearly 30% from the previous week. More impressively, the 18 to 49 was up 61.5% from last week, peaking with the main event of Samoa Joe vs CM Punk. Fightful Select are reporting that Warner Bros. Discovery are very happy with the numbers for AEW's programming, particularly Dynamite, because it was the #1 show on cable last Wednesday, and adds that WWE were also quite pleased with the monster number the Bloodline segment did on last Friday's SmackDown. And Warner Bros. Being happy with AEW might explain why they're looking to throw money at them. Now, there has been some questions around AEW's deal with Warner Bros. Discovery, and I'm not talking about the questions being thrown around by podcast morons, but more about the Warner Bros. Upfront that happened a few months ago. You know, the one where they announced the launch of AEW Collision. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer reported that AEW's new deal with WBD would be in the region of $1 billion, and that deal would be announced at the Upfront, but no such deal was announced. But on the first episode of Collision, CM Punk referred to himself as One Bill Phil, alluding to the big money deal Collision and Punk had got for the company. In a new update on the situation, Fightful Select reported that AEW and WBD have been in long conversations about extending their TV rights. Syres adds conversations have been ongoing for months, and they personally believe an announcement could be made this summer or fall of a deal reached. Fightful's contacts at WBD reiterate that they are very happy with AEW right now, not just the viewing figures it pulls in, but also their flexibility about being moved around in the schedules to accommodate for other sports ball shows, as well as brand integration like leveling up in Winnipeg for Shazam Fury of the Gods. This also extends to WBD's request that all AEW programming be exclusive to Warner Bros. Discovery, which is why Dark and Dark Elevation were pulled from YouTube. But the finger thing means the taxes. So what does it mean for the cash? Well, SRS's sources tell him that a huge money increase for AEW is coming to the company. Interestingly, there hasn't really been much of an update on the airing of All In, or whether it will even air at all. Fightful Select add that this has been part of the talks currently ongoing, so there is still hope that AEW's biggest show ever will be seen by more than the 75,000 people in attendance, one of which will be me. But there will be one person not there to see it, as there's been another AEW departure. Following the news that the AEW contracts of Trench and Fuego del Sol expired and were not renewed, PW Insider reported that Brian Pillman Jr. of the Varsity Blondes has also not had his contract extended, and he is now officially gone from the company. This has since all been but confirmed, as Pillman is no longer part of AEW's roster page. Pillman last wrestled on AEW Dynamite nearly a full year ago, and last appeared on Rampage in February. The opposite of departure now, as we turn our attention to the recent return of Drew McIntyre, who teamed with Matt Riddle on this past Monday's Raw in his first WWE match back since WrestleMania. However, he also announced that he's missing next week's show, which will see Riddle take on Gunther one-on-one, but the reason why Drew won't be on the show has now been revealed, as he'll be filming a spot for the movie The Killer's Game, which stars Sophia Patella, Ben Kingsley, Pom Clementieff, Scott Adkins, Ice Cube, and former WWE star Dave Bautista. Now, obviously, this is exciting news for Drew. Very happy for Drew. But it's also exciting news for us, because check out this synopsis. The film follows veteran assassin Joe Flood, who is diagnosed with a life-threatening illness and authorizes a kill on himself to avoid the pain that is destined to follow. After ordering the kill, he finds out that he was misdiagnosed and must then fend off an army of former colleagues trying to kill him. Yes, please, that sounds rad. And speaking of rad, it's now time for my NXT 1 minute, 1 take review. And everyone loves it when I do it, because I do it so well. Right, let me get my phone sorted. 1 second. Send. Why didn't that send? Sorry, I filmed a cameo. Earlier, and it didn't send. It's now exporting the video. So just gotta quickly do that. I don't want to lose it. It was a really good one as well. Yep, exported. Lovely. There you go. Wonderful. It's uploading and just processing. Just 1 second. One more second while it just processes. Then I can get my clock up and we are ready to go. It's quite a long video because I really put some effort into my cameos. There you go. Streak of 128. 129, in fact. Right, anyway, the clock. Let's get the clock up. 1 minute on the clock. Okay, my throat's a bit knackered today as well, so let's see how well this goes. Now, come on, Luke Owen. 2K believes in you. Xavier Woods believes in you. British wrestling legend Kendo Nagasaki believes in you. The first ever Eurocontinental champion D'Lo Brown believes in you. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Judgment Day kicked off the show to say they run this place, and Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams came out to set up a tag match between the two teams. Tony D'Angelo did a Skype promo from prison because this is a real wrestling show, and Gigi Dolan cut a promo on Kiana James. Chase U beat Drew Gulak and Charlie Dempsey, and Bron Breakker and Ilya Dragunov cut promos on each other to hype up their match for later in the show. Cora Jade beat Kalani Jordan despite sage-like wisdom from Dana Brooke. We got highlights of Raw Underground last week, and Dragunov beat Bron Breakker in a stiff match to earn a title shot of Melo for the Great American Bash. 30 seconds left. Dirty Dom challenged Wes Lee to a North American Championship match for next week, and Baron Corbin got a video package about his lack of gimmicks. Tiffany Stratton beat Ivy Nile, and the Schism tried to offer her a spot in their group. Blair Davenport cut a promo on Roxanne Perez, and Stax beat Joe Coffey, so now Tony D'Angelo can be released from prison. Los Lotharios set up a tag match with Nathan Frazier and Dragon Lee for next week, and the Judgment Day beat Melo and Trick despite help from Ilya Dragunov backfiring, and now that means that Balor's pinned Melo twice. Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it, nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. I'm feeling pretty pleased with myself on that one. Go watch yesterday's news because I reviewed Monday Night Raw and I thought it was a great show. Well, I thought it was a good show. Anyway, here's a clip of that show. It started with Finn Balor coming out for a promo to call out Damian Priest for costing him his match at Money in the Bank and to settle their differences right now. Priest didn't come out, but Mammy